this really does touch on a lot of what was in the prior talk. It talks about passion and the passion to help issues that we see. It talks about problem solving. It talks about many different things that you will see as we go through this. So let me kind of get into it. You know, one of the things you know, that strikes me when I see this slide is really two particular things. Number one, in this 100-year span, the population of the world will have more than tripled. Right? Pretty staggering if you think of that. More than tripled in just this 100-year span. 1960, we have, you know, 3 million or 3 billion, actually a little less. And we'll see by 2060, you know, this is the medium outlook. There's scenarios that bring it up to 15 billion, and there's scenarios that actually bring it down to 7 billion. You know, so a big range. But, you know, a little over 9 billion is about what, you know, the anthropologists and projectionists, you know, predict will happen. So again, just staggering. The other thing that you notice on this slide, and we really just hit the cross point here, is that historically most people have not lived in cities. The majority of people have lived in rural environments. What you're going to see here, I mean, what this indicates, that will dramatically change going forward. And again, then changes the way we think, changes, you know, our focus, how we, you know, fix problems, etc. So here's just some examples. So I just finished mentioning that more than twice the amount of people, you know, over the next 50 years or so will live in cities. Well, let's talk about some of the issues we see in cities. Municipalities lose 20% of their water through leakage. Some municipalities lose as much as 50% from where, you know, water sources to actually your faucet. You know, aging infrastructure. You know, we've passed this industrial age in you know, many, you know, cities and countries, and we really have to go back and fix that. I mean, we talk a lot about, you know, these infrastructure investments we need to make. Traffic. You know, we all see with those people, we see more traffic. You know, believe it or not, just a few years ago, there was a traffic jam in China, 60 miles long, 10 days to clear, right? I mean, staggering. It's hard to, you know, visualize that in your mind. And again, you'll continue to see issues like this. Or the blackout we had, you know, just about 10 years ago. We had a power grid, you know, issue. Really wiped out the Northeast for some period of time. And again, you know, you will see more and more of these, you know, things, these events happen as we go through our history. So one of the things that IBM is focused on is how do we help address some of these issues? And it really starts with how do we begin to collect data? How do we begin to analyze? You know, how do we, you know, methodically go and attack a lot of the issues that we see? We want to instrument things. So, I mean, you see instruments, you know, all over the place. There's sensors in your car. There's, you know, cameras when you walk down the street. You know, there's, you know, smart devices all over. The one in my pocket, etc. You know, very well instrumented. You know, interconnected. You know, things more and more now connect to one another. You know, when you go into a supermarket, they scan something, yes, for the price, but it links to the inventory system. I mean, more and more we will see things interconnected that, again, allows us an opportunity to get some deeper insight than we normally would. And again, intelligence. It's really taking that and gaining some insight with all of the data and doing something with it. Again, just some more, you know, stats. You know, 30 billion RFID tags, you know, embedded around the world. You know, these radio frequency, you know, tags that track, you know, pallets in a, you know, big warehouse. It tracks your car going through a toll booth. I mean, you know, many different, you know, types of applications. Over 1 billion cell phones have cameras, right? You know, we're always capturing things, you know, that we see. There's actually now more cell phones in the world than landline phones, than tethered phones. There's almost, 3.5 billion or so cell phones and about 3 billion or so phones that you see on the wall, the traditional phone, I'll call that. And 85% of all cars, now have some intelligence in it. I have a car that has, I think, 176 computer chips or something like that in there. And every so often, it drives me crazy when there's a software bug, but that's a different issue. But more and more, you see all of this being instrumented. People on the internet, more and more access to that. I talked about mobile phones, and when we talk about all of these different devices, soon there'll be a trillion different things, all connected from my phone to. Actually, one of my colleagues, he has his refrigerator that he actually can scan something when he takes it in or out, and it actually then generates a shopping list that he can use. That's the type of stuff that we'll see. One of the other things that we see in pilot is clothing that has sensors on it. Could be a heart monitor, could be any number of things. So more and more you're going to see things like that. Just again, lots of information, 15 petabytes of information, that's typically not your traditional, most of that is video, or actually the biggest area is in medical. It's all of the imaging, we see more and more. Working on, different types of issues, with whether it's tracking different, pandemic, and then the ability to things like predict weather. IBM has this system called Deep Thunder, and it allows you to literally pinpoint, where you would have a particular type of weather condition, which might help if there's a particular event going, or for city planning, or different things, etc. Okay, what I'd like to do now is I'm going to go through very quickly some examples and then hopefully save some time for questions. So again, as we look at some of the challenges, I talked about population growth, the aging infrastructure. One of the things is just our income sources, our revenue for that. There's lots of discussion on that. Opportunities, how do we change some of that, change quality of life or sustainability. And then here you see the different areas where we're focused. And I do believe, IBM does believe, that these are interconnected. So what I will do now is give some examples of those different areas. Smarter city is one that, again, increases, prosperity. It increases, the overall health and wealth of the community that it's looking to serve. By some insight and by, trying to relate different issues that you would see to solutions, that I'll get to in a moment. Okay, smarter transportation. So again, one of the things I talked about, this 60-mile accident as an example. How do we do a better job with addressing the problem of transportation? So, one of the things we look at is road user charging, some ability to really modify behavior. If I was to tell you that traveling on this road at this time, cost you this, and at that time cost you that, you might make a different decision. My wife and I are actually in the process of planning a trip. So we were looking, well, if we left on Saturday, it costs this. If I leave in the morning, it costs this. And again, all of that affects behavior. So, one of the things we're looking at is how would we effectively go and do that? Again, part of that is taking advantage of all of the embedded sensors. Whether it's in my car, whether it's, on the road, whether it is, at some light, whether it's taking a picture of my car, whatever it would be, how do we record that and begin to change behavior? So again, here's two now examples. In Stockholm, one of the things we did, we were commissioned by the city there to actually go in and see how could we address the traffic issues as well as environmental issues with all those cars being on the road at the same time. And again, went in there, we actually censored the environment began to, inform the public of the changes and see significant differences. 40% lower emissions, 20% less traffic. Again, all because now I have more informed decisions, now I'm aware of choices, alternatives, now I'm aware of additional costs. We will also see this in Singapore, again, working with them on smart cards. How can we do things more intelligently, more cost effectively? Energy utilities, again, I talked about this big outage we had, smart grids. How do we turn things on and off? What is the intelligence, of these, green data centers? One of the things that, I'm very involved with now. How do we make that more intelligent? Or, the new Freedom Tower in Manhattan, very much, with all of the smart technology in there to turn things on and off. Water management, when I talk about, us losing water in the cities, there's a thought that in general, what we will see is water becomes the next big issue. We talk so much about oil now and things of that nature. Water probably becomes a growing issue more so than even things like oil going forward. So again, how do you monitor this? How do you manage it? How do you really begin to affect behavior? Here's just two different scenarios. One was in Houston, one was in Denmark. And again, the focus here is how do we monitor, we check usage, we then adjust it accordingly, we move things to non-prime times where we don't need to add capacity. Again, more and more, if you know the behavior, you can adjust accordingly. And again, here's just two examples where, again, significant reduction in impact. You didn't see outages or the investments needing to be made. Again, can be targeted versus just broadly applied all over. Healthcare, but again, we know that's just a huge cost. It's a growing cost. So how is it we can focus on doing that much more cost effectively? Again, it starts with monitoring. We want people to go in proactively to get checked on different things versus reactively when issues actually occur. How do you analyze that? How do you adjust accordingly? Here's again two examples, one in Spain, one in France, again working with different patient care, trying to analyze, how can we change the way we would deliver healthcare? How do we change the way that we would proactively address healthcare? And again, you see significant benefits in doing that. Telecommunications, again, more and more we're seeing, here, smarter traffic systems, healthcare, food systems. How do we link all of this infrastructure together? Again, by embedding, the sensors, by tracking different things. One of the stats that, wasn't on one of the early slides is that the rate of food from what they refer to as field to fork is about 40% of the stuff in the field. Could be, produce, it could be livestock, it could be, crops they grow, never make it to your plate. In general, they are somehow lost. Some of these things are perishable, so if you lose it for a period of time, you can't recover that. Or, all kinds of inefficiencies in there. You could do that more efficiently. Again, makes a big difference, keeps food costs down, helps with world hunger, etc. Here again, just two examples to U.S. cities, how they're able to, here is one for the power grid, here's one for transportation as well. But more and more the focus is going to be how do we intelligently observe what is going on around us and then modify it appropriately. Smarter education, right? That's what, the theme of this is, how do we focus on delivering, better education, whatever better means, and again, you'll hear lots of definitions of that. And I agree very much, one size does not fit all. You know, I think part of what we see in our higher education system, you know, which the U.S. is still thought so highly of, is because we accept and promote that diversity of thought. And one of the things that, you know, we were struggling with is, you know, in primary and secondary education, we're struggling a little bit because, you know, we're going to a one-size-fits-all model in some cases. And again, I think that is something that we will look at, we will adjust as we go forward. But it does start with, you know, how do we understand better what the facts are? How do we then adjust appropriately for the different scenarios? I was having a conversation with Jane before and really was focused on how does a single person make a difference? You know, so often we think, well, you know, here's a principal, we have another principal, here's a teacher, here's another teacher. People matter. You know, it's amazing to me what the difference in individual teacher, you know, I have a couple that vividly come to mind when I think of my experience, or a principal at a school, really, really make a difference. You know, but again, it starts with some of the facts. You know, here's two examples, North Carolina, and then again a university in Massachusetts. And again, how do you track what they use? How do you, you know, focus on innovation? How do you know, promote many of the things that you know, really are difference makers and give you informed decisions, you know, versus one size fits all. And then I believe this, I think, is the last section. Again, you know, public safety. Again, you know, how do we anticipate, you know, where things will happen? How do we adjust accordingly? Do we need more policemen? Do we need them in, you know, different places at different times? Or firefighters, as an example. By the way, my dad was a New York City fireman for 25 years, so near and dear to my heart. And again, you know, talks about, you know, how do we, and you see the common themes, how do you take all of this instrumentation, how do you analyze it, how do you make more informed decisions? Here was a piece of work we did with New York City, and again here in Madrid, again, you know, predicting where, you know, we thought crime was likely to happen and trying to adjust it, you know, accordingly. And then I guess this actually is the last section, smarter government. You know, again, you know, how do we make government more efficient? You know, how do we collect information? Here's, again, just two different examples. Here, you know, one talks about performance, you know, in the emergency responding. Here talks about, you know, something that we're looking at for our seniors. You know, how can we do things again more intelligently, more interconnected, more efficiently in the infrastructure? So I know I went through that very quickly. I struggled how much did I put in there. I thought it would be helpful to see, you know, multiple examples. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.